Sarah Huckabee Sanders delivers the speech that Ashley Kalus and Alan Fung should have delivered the last election here in Rhode Island. Hey, welcome back to the Bourbon Bar. I'm Mike Stenhouse, and this is another edition of STEN Reacts. And of course, nothing like a charred oak tumbler to enjoy your favorite whiskey. All right, in this edition of STEN Reacts, it's going to be a long one, excuse me. We're going to look at the speech last night. This is recorded the day after the 2023 State of the Union address. President Biden gave his address. That's not really the topic of this. We're going to talk about the Republican response given by newly elected Governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Of course, she's the daughter of former Governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee as well. She was also, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, as you know, press spokeswoman for the White House under Donald Trump. And she was selected as the youngest governor in the country and as a very good communicator, as you'll see, to give the response. What an honor, wow, to the President Biden State of the Union address. And again, I'm going to go through this. I've seen it once, sort of. We're going to go through it in detail, the whole speech. It's a 14-minute speech. It's going to be stopped and interjected with my commentary as well. So sit back, grab your favorite adult or soft drink, adult beverage or soft drink beverage, and let's go through this, because if what I think is what we're going to see here is what I think we're going to see in here. This should be the model for how Republican lawmakers in this state and in every state should push back against the woke agenda, a Democrat Party that has been dominated and if not compromised by the woke progressive left. This should be the model. This is what I had hoped we would have been hearing from Ashley Kalus and Alan Fung. We didn't hear it. They lost. Would it have made a difference? Who knows? But this is the model for any future leader, in my view, in Rhode Island on how you talk about politics today. So let's go to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let me make sure I'm sharing the sound. Let's begin and let's go.
Being a mom to 3 young children taught me not to believe every story I hear. So forgive me for not believing much of anything I heard tonight from President Biden.
So, right again, she makes the contrast. She sets the tone. She's not playing nice here, right? She's not sounding mean, combative, but she's telling it. We don't believe what you're hearing coming from this White House and from the left. And we've been telling you that for years.
From out of control inflation and violent crime to the dangerous border crisis and threat from China, Biden and the Democrats have failed you. They know it, and you know it. And it's time for a change. Tonight.
Quickly, what I like about this, unlike candidates here in Rhode Island who want to just offer solutions, they don't lay the blame at the feet of who caused the problems in the first place. Again, Sanders does that brilliantly, succinctly, and without malice.
Tonight, let us reaffirm our commitment to a timeless American idea that government exists not to rule the people, but to serve the people. Democrats want to rule us with more government control, but that's not who we are. America is the greatest country the world has ever known, because we're the freest country the world has ever known.
We're the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Substitute greatness for prosperity, and you can, and again, we agree, the more free we are, the more prosperous we are, the more great we will become.
With a people who are strong and resilient. 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was a hard time for our family, particularly our kids, Scarlett, Huck, and George. But we kept our faith and persevered. Thanks to exceptional doctors here in Arkansas, a successful surgery, and the grace of God, I am cancer-free. Through it all, I couldn't help but think about my mom. She was 20 years old.
So again, telling personal stories, overcoming adversity, she makes an emotional connection right here, right? So cancer survivor. Now she's going to talk about her mom. Important to make these emotional connections.
And in her first year of marriage, when she was diagnosed with spinal cancer, the doctors told her she might not live, and if she did live, they said she'd never walk again. And if she did walk, she'd definitely never have children. The daughter she was told she'd never have was just sworn in as the new governor of Arkansas and is speaking to you tonight.
Wow. The daughter she was told she would never have. That's a powerful line, folks.
Adversity and fear of the unknown can paralyze us, but faith propels us to charge boldly ahead. We can't stand still in the face of great challenges. You and I were put on this earth for such a time as this, to charge boldly ahead.
I like her use of religion. She mentioned that earlier, by the grace of God, but she talks about faith here, not so much God, faith in God. She put on that's kind of godly, but also I think when she talked about faith just there, faith in America and the American ideals. That's something we don't hear. You know, in today's woke culture, everybody is trying to crush and beat down founding fathers, our founding ideals. Here, she's saying we must have faith in those ideals. See, this is the level at which you need to talk to people if you want to connect and you want to, if you're a politician, win votes.
I'll be the first to admit, President Biden and I don't have a lot in common. I'm for freedom, he's for government control. At 40, I'm the youngest governor in the country. And at 80, he's the oldest president in American history. I'm the first woman to lead my state, and he's the first man to surrender his presidency to a woke mob that can't even tell you what a woman is.
Oh! How many politicians in this state have surrendered their governorship, their generalship, their lieutenant governorship, their education commissioner, their position as a state senator or a state representative, have surrendered their elected official status to the woke mob? And how many times did I say I was disappointed that not one member of the mainstream media asked one prominent candidate how to define a woman, whether men should be allowed to compete in women's sports, and so on and so forth. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, again, she's getting into the issues that must be talked about in today's era. But yet, you don't find many politicians with the courage to say what she just said. And again, in such a non-threatening, non-malicious way. And we certainly don't find many members of the media who will ask such questions.
In the radical left's America, Washington taxes you and lights your hard-earned money on fire. But you get crushed with high gas prices, empty grocery shelves, and our children are taught to hate one another on account of their race. But not
Again, there it is. Children taught that. I mean, do you realize the power? Most people understand the power behind that. A very simple phrase, again, non-malicious, but she frames it beautifully. She dives into these complex, complicated, divisive, controversial issues, and she does it with such ease. This is terrific.
not to love one another or our great country. Whether Joe Biden believes this madness or is simply too weak to resist it.
It's madness. Liberal Neverland and make believe. I mean, so what we got here is Sarah Huckabee Sanders speaking truth. And from Joe Biden, probably before her, if you watched it, was just fantasies, woke fantasies from the liberal Neverland of make believe. Reality versus truth, control versus freedom. Beautiful.
His administration has been completely hijacked by the radical left. The dividing line in America is no longer between right or left. The choice is between normal or crazy. It's time for a new generation of Republican leadership.
Normal or crazy?
Upon taking office just a few weeks ago, I signed executive orders to ban CRT, racism, and indoctrination in our schools.
Again, did we hear one mention of that from Alan Fong or Ashley Kayla? So we certainly didn't hear anything from Dan McKee or Seth Magaziner. These are powerful issues. We know this. Our viewership is the highest when we touch upon these issues on my In the Dugout podcasts. Sarah Sanders is not afraid.
Eliminate the use of derogatory term Latinx in our government, repealed COVID orders, and said never again to authoritarian mandates and shutdowns. Americans want common sense from their leaders, but in Washington, the Biden administration is doubling down on crazy.
Doubling down on crazy. How beautiful is that?
President Biden inherited the fastest economic recovery on record, the most secure border in history, cheap, abundant, homegrown energy, fast rising wages, a rebuilt military, and a world that was stable and at peace. But over the last 2 years, Democrats destroyed it all. Despite Democrats' trillions in reckless spending and mountains of debt, we now have the worst border crisis in American history.
You didn't hear Joe Biden mention the border at all. You probably didn't hear him talk about a lot of things that Huckabee Sanders has just talked about and probably will talk about. The things that are of real concern to you, she is addressing. The pretend things that Joe Biden and the left want to dream about, that's what he talked about. Again, real versus fake.
As a mom, my heart breaks for every parent who has lost a son or daughter to addiction. 100,000 Americans a year are now killed from drug overdoses, largely from fentanyl pouring across our southern border. Yet the Biden administration refuses to secure the border and save American lives. And after years of Democrat attacks on law enforcement and calls to defund the police, violent criminals roam free, while law-abiding families live in fear. Beyond our border, from Afghanistan to Ukraine, from North Korea to Iran, President Biden's weakness puts our nation and the world at risk. And the president's refusal to stand up to China, our most formidable adversary, is dangerous and unacceptable. President Biden is unwilling to defend our border, defend our skies, and defend our people. He is simply unfit to serve as commander-in-chief.
Okay, now you can agree with that or not, but I want to talk about the other tactics. Again, what we did not hear from the high-profile candidate in this state who are supposedly conservative and running under the Republican banner, laying the blame at the feet of your opponents. That's just what you do in politics. Instead, our people just talked about solutions. Now, solutions has to be part of the mix. But this is war. You've got to tear down, you've got to destroy the credibility of your opponent. And again, you don't have to destroy it by being malicious, by being mean, by being personal, but lay the policy blames at the feet of those who caused them and make sure people understand that. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Governor Sanders, is doing this marvelously right here.
And while you reap the consequences of their failures, the Biden administration seems more interested in woke fantasies than the hard reality Americans face every day.
I think I just said that.
Most Americans simply want to live their lives in freedom and peace. But we are under attack in a left-wing culture war we didn't start and never wanted to fight. Every day we are told
a left-wing culture war we didn't start and never wanted to fight. Now, how many times have we said, look, we as conservatives, we just want to be left alone. Let us, if we want to read the Bible and go to church and we want to own guns to protect ourselves, just leave us alone. We won't bother you, don't bother us. But again, the left has picked this fight with us. And way too many of us won't fight back. I do by doing this broadcast. Sarah Huckabee Sanders will enough Republicans in Washington, D.C. do so. We certainly don't see enough Republicans in this state doing so.
We must partake in their rituals, salute their flags, and worship their false idols, all while big government colludes with big tech to strip away the most American thing there is, your freedom of speech. That's not normal. It's crazy, and it's wrong. Make no mistake, Republicans will not surrender this fight. We will lead with courage.
I'm not so sure about Republicans, all of them. We'll see.
And do what's right, not what's politically correct or convenient. Republicans believe in an America where strong families thrive in safe communities, where jobs are abundant and paychecks are rising, where the freedom our veterans shed their blood to defend is the birthright of every man, woman, and child.
Wow, we've been talking about American birthright. We've been talking about the social studies standards, the corrupt, the non-academic, the mistake-riddled standards put up by the Department of Education, how it teaches students to hate their country literally, and how it doesn't teach the appreciation of the pursuit of liberty, as imperfect as that pursuit might have been for us as a nation. And we've been talking about the American birthright of liberty. And here's, boy, I love everything she's saying. And here is Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying the exact same thing.
These are the principles Republican governors are fighting for. And in Washington, under the leadership of Senate Republicans and Speaker Kevin McCarthy, we will hold the Biden administration accountable.
I don't know about Mitch McConnell.
Down the street from where I sit is my alma mater, Little Rock Central High. As a student there, I will never forget watching my dad, Governor Mike Huckabee, and President Bill Clinton hold the doors open to the Little Rock Nine. Doors that 40 years earlier had been closed to them because they were Black. Today, those...
I don't know about the Little Rock Nine. I'll have to do some research on that, but I can't do it right now and comment, but I can only imagine.
Children once barred from the schoolhouse are now heroes memorialized in bronze at our State House. I'm proud of the progress our country has made, and I believe giving every child access to a quality education, regardless of their race or income, is the civil rights issue of our day. Tomorrow, I will unveil an education package that will be the most far-reaching, bold, conservative education reform in the country.
Oh, wait a minute. She just took office a month ago and she's already unveiling the boldest. I can't wait to hear what this is.
My plan empowers parents with real choices.
What we've been talking about. Keep going, Sarah.
Improves literacy and career readiness, and helps put a good teacher in every classroom by increasing their starting salary from one of the lowest to one of the highest in the nation.
As long as they're good teachers.
Here in Arkansas and across America, Republicans are working to end the policy of trapping kids in failing schools and sentencing them to a lifetime of poverty. We will educate.
Did you hear any candidate in Rhode Island say that? Do you hear any Republican or Democrat in Rhode Island say that? I don't. We've been saying,
not indoctrinate our kids and put students on a path to success. It's time for a new generation to lead. This is our moment. This is our opportunity.
a new generation. Would that exclude her former boss, Donald Trump? Interesting.
A new generation born in the waning decades of the last century, shaped by economic booms and stock market busts, forged by the triumph of the Cold War and the tragedy of 9/11. A generation brimming with passion and new ideas to solve age-old problems. a generation moored to our deepest values and oldest traditions, yet unafraid to challenge the present order and find a better way forward. If we seize this moment together, America can once again be the land of the free and the home of the brave. During my 2.5 years at the White House, I traveled on every foreign trip with the president. A trip I will never forget was on December 25th of 2018. My husband Brian and I had just cleaned up wrapping paper that was shoved in.
I did hear this part. I was paying attention when she was on. This is an incredible story.
To every corner of our house, thanks to our 3 kids. When I had to walk out on my own family's Christmas, unable to tell them where I was going that night, because the place I'd be traveling was so dangerous, they didn't want anybody to know that the president was going to be on the ground, even for a few hours. We boarded Air Force One in complete and total darkness. There were no lights on the plane, no lights on the runway. Our phones and computers shut down and turned in. We were going completely off the grid. Nearly 12 hours later, in the pitch black of night, we landed in the war-torn part of Western Iraq. It was again a similar scene. No lights on the plane, no lights on the runway. The only thing you could see was coming from about a mile away in a dining hall where hundreds of troops who were in the fight against ISIS had gathered expecting to celebrate Christmas with senior military leadership from around the region. They had absolutely no idea that the president and first lady were about to walk into that room. And when they did, it was a sight and a scene and a sound I hope I never forget. The room erupted. Men and women from every race, religion, and region, every political party, every demographic you can imagine, started chanting in perfect unison over and over and over again, USA, USA, USA. It was an absolutely perfect picture.
I can't imagine that would happen with Joe Biden right now. Although, sadly, we know that Biden has removed a lot of generals and officers and even everyday servicemen and women who they consider to be conservative or didn't take the vaccine or potential insurrectionists. The Army is filled with compliant, maybe not leftists themselves, but at least overly compliant, non-courageous politically figures. But I still don't think they would give a standing cheer to this commander-in-chief.
Of what makes our country great. One of the young soldiers yelled from the back, "Mr. President, I re-enlisted in the military because of you." And the president said, "And son, I'm here because of you."
Wow. You know, that's when Trump was at his best, and she's talking about Trump here, of course. When he says, "Look, I am your voice." Remember in his campaign, "I am your voice, you are the forgotten worker," or whatever. "I am your voice." Just like he's saying here, "I'm here for you, Mr. Soldier." That's the theme that politicians need to take.
Shortly after, that young soldier came up to me. He said, "Sarah, you have a tough job." I told him, "What I do is nothing. You take bombs and bullets. That's a tough job." And in a moment that I know I'll cherish for the rest of my life, that soldier reached up and he pulled the Brave Rifles patch he wore on his shoulder, and he placed it into my hand, a sign of ultimate respect. And he said, "Sarah, We are in this together. Overwhelmed with emotion and speechless, I just hugged him with tears in my eyes and a grateful heart for our heroes who keep us free. That young man and everyone who has served before him, all of those who serve alongside him, and the thousands we know who will be called upon to serve after him, deserve to know they have a country and a community back home doing our part in the fight for freedom. America is great because we are free. But today, our freedom is under attack, and the America we love is in danger. President Biden and the Democrats have failed you, and it's time for a change. A new generation of Republican leaders are stepping up, not to be caretakers of the status quo, but to be change makers for the American people. We know not what the future holds, but we know who holds the future in his hands. And with God as our witness,
Wow, we know not what the future holds, but we know who holds the future in our hands. Wow, pretty profound.
we will show the world that America is still the place where freedom reigns and liberty will never die. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America. Being a mom to 3 young children,
Wow. That was better than I thought it would be. This is the tone. These are the themes. This is the quiet courage that we need to see from anyone who believes in the founding principles of our constitutional republic. We are not a pure democracy. It is not majority rules. Our elected representatives have the power. We give them that power, but they have the bully pulpit, like Governor Sanders right there did, to talk to you and to me and to our families and our friends, and to re-educate us on the great values, the great ideals of this country. Of course, we're not going to ignore the great mistakes. We need to talk about the great mistakes in our past, the major errors. You know what I'm talking about. But we're still trying to learn from them, and we're still trying to grow and become that ideal, become that perfect union. May never happen, but this is the tone, this is the level at which I would love to see some politicians in Rhode Island speak at. We don't get it. I don't know why. I don't know if they're afraid. I don't know if they have the intellectual political knowledge to do so. We just don't hear it. I'd like to know. Send us an email, info@rifreedom.org. Is this the level of speech you want to hear? Not so much the specific content, but is this the level at which you want to hear? Or do you want to get into the mire of endless little policy solutions and nothing more? No personal stories, no philosophical proclamations or criticisms. Again, I'll close by saying this. And again, just to remind you, all of our STEN Reacts segments can be found from the drop down under quick links at oceanstatecurrent.com, STEN Reacts. This to me is the template for success for conservative candidates nationally and even here in Rhode Island. I think that template, that style, that content, that courage that you just saw from Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is what could turn the tide in this state if only we had savvy and courageous enough politicians in this state. That person you just saw is a star in the making. Look, I thought she was a pretty good press secretary. She's on a path. She's got a future. you may be looking at a future president of the United States right there. She's got a lot of learning to do. She's got 12 years she's got to go through in Arkansas, and probably some other appointment. But that is a star in the making. And I hope other conservative politicians, office holders, appointees, candidates will learn from what you just saw there. Again, a thank you for watching this edition of STEN Reacts. Quick links at oceanstatescurrent.com, and saying goodbye from the Bourbon Bar, Mike Stenos out. Good day.